I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I was I wish I was a shot caller. Like Wes Watson. Damn. The fall off should be studied. Forgive me, I begin this with a little bit of woe is me in relation to my own identity here on the internet. But for good reason. You know, if I was in a position better off, like if the channel was in a better place, and I know it's all my fault for the state of the union where the channel actually is currently, I should have done it better. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. You can't change what's already happened, but maybe we can improve from here. I share all of this with you because if things were better, maybe I could do more to help. All of a sudden, I find myself in a position where that seems important. I hate the way that sounds. It's always important to help. But so many times in the past when I've attempted to help and that has gone haywire, completely astray, completely wrong, you kind of get burnt out trying to help. And the person in question, who I'm talking about here, who I wish I could help, there might not be a whole hell of a lot of help for this individual. Somebody who's not too far separated or different from so many people that I've featured before here in the past, who have dealt with and suffered from substance abuse issues and drug addiction full blown, where they can't get out of their own way. And that leads to relapse and spiraling out of control and ultimately incarceration. The person that I'm talking about is a guy by the name of Richard, who I've began to share, and a guy who I've only featured in the past here sporadically, but whose story is so insane right this second. This is a guy who's time and time again, countless times, found himself in and out of jail because of addiction. And this last time he gets out of jail with absolutely nowhere to go, and he ends up in a freaking sex offender halfway house, the only place that he could get into. Now, of course, he's not a sex offender, and if he was, I would never deal with this dude. The sex offender halfway house that he ended up at, I couldn't believe it when, I heard about it. I hated that for him. You want to talk about the epitome of rock bottom? This is a house that houses 15 individuals. There's 3 people there. Richard was one of them. I say one because he was just recently kicked out of there. But there were 3 people there who didn't have the bad type of charges. They were just like Richard. Ended up there because they didn't have nowhere else to go, or maybe they didn't know that that's what this place was. Yeah, so Richard recently got kicked out of the halfway house. This happened over the weekend. I was traveling when Richard texts me and tells me about this. I tried to call him yesterday being Monday. I wasn't able to get in contact with him. His phone was off. I had read a text message from him that basically said he was in the streets. That was on Saturday or Sunday that I read that text message. So yesterday when I'm trying to call him and his phone's off all day long and I can't get in contact with him, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to make of it, and I can only assume the worst. But this morning I would end up on the phone with Richard, and he's been living in the worst of hotels, staying there. He barely has any money. Now, he does work, but he doesn't have transportation. And he shares with me the story of what happened that led to him getting kicked out of the halfway house. Hopefully, I'm going to get a chance to let him share that with us. But I'm going to share it with you real quick, just in case, for whatever reason, we don't. Because Richard's in a very volatile situation right now. And I don't know that he makes it through the day. Not on some death type of shit, but he's in a bad place mentally, spiritually. And he doesn't have a lot of hope. And I know that that's just a recipe for disaster when it comes to relapse and addiction. But over this weekend, Richard had some money saved up from working, and he wanted to go look at a vehicle. He's been trying to look at this vehicle, and he finally gets an opportunity to look at it, and this is on a Sunday. Now, it's mandatory that you go to church living in this cult-like sex offender halfway house. There's a lot to this, and I can't wait to really crack the lid open on this and expose this shit. That's actually becoming a little bit of my mission right this second, and I think it would be great for content. I'm even thinking about trying to go undercover. But anyways, Richard wants to go look at the vehicle, but it's during church hours. Now, Richard really doesn't have to, or at least the way that he explained this to me, he doesn't have to abide by all of the rules that are set in place, which predominantly pertain to a sex offender situation. But he lives in a sex offender house, so I guess kind of he does. And going to church for whatever reason is a part of the process, a part of the rules. I don't know why church is so important in relation to the sex offender recovery. Like, do you recover from that? Like, you're a monster for life. You're going to hell. Ain't no amount of church going to save you. That's just my opinion. I'm sure most people would agree with that. This is a very screwed up situation Richard found himself in, living at this particular place. He wants to go look at the vehicle. It's during the church scenario, or it's during the time that they're supposed to go to church. So he gets to arguing with the house guy, who I guess is like one of the worst types of monsters. And this argument turns somewhat combative, and then another guy kind of steps in. Richard almost got jumped by a bunch of sex offenders is what it sounds like. But ultimately, they come together and congregate, and they kick Richard out. Richard doesn't even have nothing but the clothes on his back, and he put groceries in the house. He left the groceries in the house. So Richard is all to pieces when I'm talking to him this morning. He's in 7-Eleven. He's trying to get him some donuts. He drops the donuts on the floor, throws them away. The cashier tells him he's got to pay for the donuts. All of this is taking place while I'm on the phone with him, and I can just hear this combative stuff coming out of him, which I'm not used to. Because every time I've met Richard and dealt with him and done videos, he's always been somewhat optimistic. But it certainly sounds like now he's not. The only positive that he seemed to have going for him was the fact that he was going to work today. And I told him, I said, listen, man, you have got to try to look at this thing and remain hopeful. You got to look at the glass half full. I know that's impossible to do. I'm not in a position to be able to jump and rescue this dude, like try to put him in a better living situation, even though I want to help him try to get to that. I just don't know if we're going to get the opportunity to do so. Because it's such a volatile state that this guy is in right this second, that it seems like at the drop of a hat, this guy could fall right back to the relapse. And I don't want to see that for him. I like the guy. I think he's a genuinely decent dude. But I also am realistic about the situation and know that if I get my hands involved in this situation trying to help, that the chances of any good coming out of this are slim to none. Buddy's walking on thin ice. He's skating the thin and narrow. And everything is ultimately going to be up to him. And it reminds me of so many situations in the past that were similar to this. And I just think to myself, even if I was in a position to help, there's probably not enough help out there because the outcome will probably always be what the outcome always has been. Sad enough to admit that and think that. Some people, man, they're just stuck in their ways. You can't teach an old dog new tricks type shit. Some people are so used to just screwing up time and time again, and I'm not trying to say that that's how this guy is, but this is how I perceive the situation to be with so many people. Some people are just so used to it that they almost accept it. They have to because it keeps happening. And you want to believe as an outsider looking at a person's struggle that there's got to be a point when they realize enough is enough. Richard is 59 years old. And maybe looking at the finish line is looking too far ahead. Always hoping for the happy ending, the good outcome. Maybe just taking it as it comes and accepting whatever the outcome is all that you can do. And maybe there's some feel good in the fact that you tried. That's what I want. And I don't share this with you because I'm expecting the world to come together like, let's try to rescue this guy. Hey, if that happened, that's great. But it's definitely a story to follow that I'm interested in sharing because it paints a bigger picture here. Outside of Richard and his individual struggle with addiction, it goes back to the justice system, the judicial system, the resources available to individuals, and possibly the lack thereof. I've always been of the mindset that, there's resources. People just got to take them, find them, and utilize them, and take them serious. But Richard, he's in jail. He has absolutely nothing and nowhere to go. And the only option that he gets or can find is a halfway house for sex offenders, where that's absolutely a recipe for disaster. And statistically, if there was some kind of a study on this, to put a guy that doesn't have sex offenses in a sex offender halfway house, statistically, his chances of making it after prison, after release, after jail, got to be in the freaking negative somewhere. I mean, nothing, no chance whatsoever. I share this with you because, again, I reiterate the fact that this is definitely a story that I am interested in, and one that I'm hopeful, I say that I'm hopeful we can some kind of a way impact and change the universe. It's already written in the stars how this story is going to play out, like trying to be philosophical with this. But what if some kind of a way we could fold time? We could go back. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Whether I'm able to do any type of a good for Richard, I want to at least try. And whether we succeed or we fail, which ultimately, I'll fail. I always do, right? And it's always my fault. But regardless if it fails or not, hey man, maybe some kind of a way it helps somebody else, like Jesus Christ. Let me sober up and get my life together before I end up in a situation similar. Getting locked up umpteenth times to finally having no other options and all bridges burned and exhausted to where the only place that I can go is a God-blessed sex offender halfway house. You might as well just not even let me out of jail, because ain't no way I'm not coming back, getting released to a situation like that. Maybe a scenario like that help somebody else see the light. I wish some kind of a way I could help Richard see the light. Like I said, financially, logistically, I'm just not in the position to be able to do so. But you know what I did do? I talked to Richard for like 30 minutes this morning, trying to talk him off the proverbial ledge. I'm just not certain that them words really reached home for a guy that doesn't have anywhere that he can call home himself. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. And who knows? Maybe some kind of a way. This will be a story you'll be interested to follow. Hey, I'm not asking you to donate or GoFundMe or anything like that. But possibly just watching these videos. Maybe they go viral. We're doing it for the views. God bless it, damn right we are. Because we ain't got nothing else that we can do it for, that I can hope would lead to a possibility of garnering resources myself, that could possibly help a guy like Richard. Thanks for allowing me to share.